thank you very much. It's really fantastic to be here. I think you've all got programs, so you can see the run of events. I decided not to bring my trumpet because the players at this college are so good that what happens is, we did a class yesterday, I worked with some of the students yesterday and they were all fantastic. And I had some things to say, I really wanted to get my points across. I was passionate about certain things. And they would play something, it'd be pretty good. And then I'd go to demonstrate, and it was not really as good. So I just thought, that's not what one needs in a masterclass. I made my point, and I think the students understood. But if you want, those masterclasses where the student plays and then this is how it's really done, that's not my masterclass. But that being said, I do have some really sort of basic, consistent things that I'm really passionate about when I talk about the trumpet and music making. So hopefully we can talk about some of those today. We do have an order. I think we have someone who's going to start, and they're just going to take it away. I'll let them play for a while, and then we'll do some work with each individual person. And then in between, as we're doing sort of changeover with each person, I think if you've got any questions, no matter how zany or unexpected, please ask away. fantastic player. You're shaking your head. But I think that was a complete performance. He was charismatic. We were all with him every second. Things may have not have gone exactly as the best you've ever played it, but we can still get a sense of your musicianship. The things that are hard from here on to improve, you've got them in your toolkit already. Yeah. One thing that's really, really hard to teach is when someone doesn't really have that sort of innate musical ability or affinity with the piece. And I feel like this is your piece. You know, you get this piece. You've got something to say with this piece. You're very musical. Your musical phrases make sense and keep us engaged. Really, it's kind of technical, the things that you now need to think about to help you. And I was a bit mean, really, because I was thinking things that I knew that you needed to do really early on. And by letting you play, of course, it's a great challenge to play a piece like this in this space. But I already knew what I was going to say, and it was just a case that, yeah, I can see those things playing out for the whole piece. And sure enough, that, you know, as it goes on, I saw you glance at me like, is she going to stop me? It's like, no, I'm not. And the reason is, this is the time when you learn the most, when you're under pressure and then you see. You know, we were talking this morning, we had a little Q&A session this morning with the trumpets. When you're under pressure, there's no bigger pressure than playing in a trumpet masterclass, you know, with all your trumpet colleagues here, and people sort of forensically picking apart what you're doing. But we talked about how different it is when you're practicing to how it feels when you're performing, and that extra pressure. And the first thing that happens, probably to all of us, even those of you in the room who aren't trumpet players, is that the breathing that you do in normal life, which fills up your egg-shaped lungs, goes to here immediately. I don't know if any of you have ever had like a stressful letter in the post or anything, and suddenly, I really feel like this. Now, this is bad, but it's terrible for trumpet players, because it doesn't, of course, we need to breathe to stay alive, but we also need to breathe, not just to get to the end of our phrase, but the actual sound that we make, the quality is completely transformed with the way that you produce the air. And even with what you were doing, it was great. And I could see some of the things where, you know, the notes, you maybe just didn't quite hit the note or something near the beginning. I could see it was because you were like, I better remember to breathe, and I'm going to breathe. If anything, you were breathing more than you probably normally do at the beginning, which is why sometimes you might overshoot a note or something, which is great, but you need to get used to that feeling of using that much air. And then what happened, you began to sort of mentally lose a little bit of confidence, thinking, oh, it's not going quite the way I was hoping it would go, even though we can tell you're a fabulous trumpet player. It's now these last few percent, which are the hardest bits to get from, 98 to 99 to 100. And then what happened was the breathing just wasn't quite what you needed, wasn't optimal. And this is breathing that you need to be really aware of under pressure, but also when you're practicing. And I talked about this a lot yesterday, so apologies to the students who I've talked about this with already. But the thing that is so interesting to me is that even when you're as good as this, there's still so much more to learn. I remember when I left music college, and then that's when I did probably the most of my learning, because some of the things that my really great teachers had said to me started to finally make sense to me. And I didn't, learning with Hardenberger, no one had even said this to me before I was, 24 or something. But the idea with your tonguing, tonguing is a huge thing for trumpeters. Can I just get a show of hands? How many trumpeters have we got here? So I know quite a lot. And brass players, just generally, yeah. So there's a lot of people where I can get into the nitty-gritty technique stuff. Making a note with the trumpet, surely it's got to be the hardest instrument, right? Because you have to make all the notes, and it's, there's a lot of... I have a theory on this. I'll share it with you later. Anyway, it's hard. They're all hard in different ways. But the trumpet, you've got to make this note, and you've got to really make it in a way that doesn't trip you up later on. And if you're making notes with your tongue, essentially, and relying on your tiny, tiny embouchure muscles, that is a sort of scary, insecure way to produce a note. And this, for example, if this is your tongue, poof, making a note, and you're making that note, and sometimes if you're feeling a bit stressed or a bit tired, really, you can make the note in your mouth with the tongue. It's not necessarily the best sound you're ever going to make, but you can do that if the chips are down. But what you should really be doing all the time is imagining, Maurice Andre is the person who I use as my example of this, because it's like, if anyone knows any Maurice Andre, has ever heard his recordings, which probably all of us have, every note is like a big massive water balloon, boof. So it's sort of like fat and satisfying and round, and it's got such a big front to the note. But when I say front, I don't mean like a tongue. It just has so much air that creates the note that one needs to have quite a lot of tongue in order for it to have some kind of articulation at all. So instead of this, boof, it's this, boof. So you've got, it almost looks the same, but the energy is not in the forward, it's in the back of the tongue. And you can't really talk to students about this until they've basically got the mastery of the instrument, because it just messes with your head. But if you were doing that more, your stamina would be better, because it's going to be so boring. I'm going to say this so many times, but you need more air. And then once the air is there, creating the notes, then you can do what you like with the tongue, and it can be infinite varieties of articulation. It's not just slurred or tongued. You know, there's everything in between, and the places you put your tongue and all that kind of thing. But essentially, you've got to keep going back to the basics, which is that your body and the air that you get out of your body, your lungs, you know, the bigger parts of your body, not your mouth and not your throat cavity, but your lungs and your chest and your it's not your stomach, but you're thinking down to these muscles down here. And then everything else is like a sort of helps you to sort of release, and that sort of is everything. And of course, once you've got enough air and you're not on the back foot, like, I've just got to get to the end, whatever happens, then, because things go, like your coordination and your confidence and things like that. And I know you can play this piece. You probably play this piece, like, without even thinking. But when it's difficult and you're playing in a performance situation, you've got to work out what's going to help you the most. And I promise you, it's oxygen is going to help you the most. And the other thing I just wanted to say is just this sort of stylistic thing, which is, it's romantic and it's kind of rhapsodic and it's a lovely kind of equal duo with the piano playing it so well. But you do need to find more than one color. Yeah. Even if that means, I'm not necessarily saying that means you need to use different speeds of vibrato, or that you could, you don't need to exaggerate it, particularly in this piece, but I really need a sense that you have planned the colors and the moods and the personalities of the different sections and even the different phrases sometimes. So it's really nice to have that, like, yeah, da, 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 and that's fine, but we don't want just that, okay? So we need to be told a story that has more than one line in it, and sometimes it's enough just to think about it and have a plan. You don't have to tell us, like, demonstrably, it doesn't have to be like, and now I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to do this. And it sometimes just has to be in your head, because if you're believing it, the authenticity of that comes across to us. I mean, it's abstract stuff. This is not like a poem or, words. This is all what we want to make of it. But you have to really have something you want to say with every single phrase. I was talking yesterday about, like some pieces, like literally there's a picture of the sun, or it says echo, or it says, dance, or it says, whatever it is that helps you stay in that sort of creative zone. Yeah. Right, let's just go again for a bit, and then we'll see. Right, just remember, it's hard to kind of change the way you play under pressure, but if nothing else, just more air. Thank you. this is great. It's beautiful playing. There's a few things which obviously you don't need me to tell you, like you need to hold your trumpet in a way that you can properly use the whole thing. And sometimes it's like, you know, like, oh, I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah, I've got a cut on my finger and I keep playing like that because it's really painful to play on the front, but that's just me. That's not a problem, but.
Okay. Plaster? Does it have any plasters? Anyone got a plaster? That is,
Bad habit.
yeah, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, that would be a bit like me, you know, like if you played the violin, turning up and playing it on the other shoulder, and I'd be like, what? And you'd be like, oh, yeah, hurt my hand. It's like, okay, I'm sorry about your finger, but you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, which you definitely don't want to be doing. And the thing about that is that not only, like, you need to get your hand position really perfect, essentially, because, you know, in the future, you're going to be playing things that are even harder than this and nasty and tricky, and you have to practice in that position. So those muscles are there, and without you thinking. So in the practice room, you're always checking that stuff, because then when you're under pressure, your hand wants to go to that perfect position because that's where the muscles are strongest. So if you never play the way you're playing at the moment, your fingers are going to be like, what is this instrument? I don't play this instrument, because that's not where the muscles are. So it's super important, that stuff. And the other thing is, there's a sense, like, you're such a great player. You're really a good player. And so when you're doing things which are safe, it's really obvious to me that you're being safe because you don't really want them to go wrong, obviously. But it would sound better if they did go wrong, if you played them in a way like, this might go wrong, but I'm actually, it's almost like a sort of like, what's the word? You know, like, I'm actually going to enjoy the pressure of this situation. I'm going to do something, like in a baroque situation, you might be like, I'm so scared of playing this piece that I'm actually going to add some more ornamentation here just to show myself, like, yes, it's a special occasion, I'm going to risk it. And when you do those scales up, I get the sense that you're like, let's not get anything wrong. And I really want you to find your extra flair in this situation, yeah? And reach for those. Well, yeah, let's try one more time, and I want you to really play with abandon. Obviously, you have to act this. You may not be feeling it, but I want you to act that you have abandon and extra flair, because this is the performance rather than the practice. Okay. It's really great. How did that feel? What's going through your mind? Share it with us.
It just, like, I want to do more, but I can't get myself to do more.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's a very natural feeling in this situation. I think it's hard to work out he wants to do more, he wants to be freer, but it's hard to do that in this situation. But if you record yourself and listen back, it will become clear to you what's happening. Because it's so hard when you're being so subjective and you're trying really hard to play this hard thing. But once you start listening to it, like, where is the most important part of this phrase? It's not necessarily in the bit that you're most dreading. And we don't really care about the bits that you find difficult. We're looking for those moments of, like, that's where the sun comes out, and that's the end, that phrase is going here or going there. And you've got all of that in you naturally. You're a natural musician. You can understand it without even trying. But you need to, like, now critique yourself from the outside and be like, oh yeah, I'm fixating on this other thing. Because the thing about the trumpet is that so physically challenging, and the instrument itself is so inaccurate that we get so hung up on that stuff that it can just distract us from the thing that could be really joyful and feed us and show us how to play it and make you actually really enjoy yourself. And the other thing that it would do would be like, I was talking a bit about this yesterday, we get so used to where the notes sit on the instrument in terms of intonation and that kind of thing, that we stop hearing things like a top A that might be sharp, yeah, or a note, a note which is going to be a dangerous one in terms of like playing it with a piano, and you've got to be super aware of where those notes are. Be ready to use those triggers or those alternative fingerings, because us as the listeners, we are not interested in why that's a hard note or whether that's always a sharp note, so it doesn't really count. It's like if you play a bottom C sharp and you don't use your triggers, and everyone's like, all the trumpeters in the audience will be like, yeah, that's where I hear that C sharp there too. But anyone else, which is in real life, everyone, they'll be like, why does that sound not very nice? So you've got to be absolutely objective with yourself. And the only way you can really do that is by recording yourself and listening back, which is horrendous. We all hate doing that. But it really, if you want to get better, that's what you need to do. Thank you. Let's keep going. Let's just keep going for a little bit longer, because I'm really enjoying your sound and your phrasing. Okay, stop. Just because it says softly doesn't mean like, do play it like this and then she won't say anything. Okay, just, you can enjoy this. This is your moment of like, oh, it's lyrical, it's lovely. It's really good. This idea of all these intervals, you're playing them really well actually, but it's sort of a compositional tool, like da 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 da, and then it's like the jump down, and then da ya da. It's like a reach for it, and I know that you're sort of like, okay, I have to make sure I get that right, and it's like, but let's make a point of it, because I love to think about the James Stamp, when you think in the opposite direction, and you've got da ya da, and you're doing that, but you've forgotten to enjoy it, because it's actually, to the listener, it's like, oh wow, listen to that. Well, listen to the trumpet go from there to there, and I feel like it's easy for you, so enjoy it and give it to us, even like, give it to the audience like, look what I can do, yeah? Rather than, I just don't want this to go wrong, yeah? Okay. One more time. Fantastic. So, well done, that's really great. You are the hardest type of player to teach because you have such a natural ability. You're so good, and I don't know how hard it's been for you to get to this stage. But now, now we've got to do, if you do anything else to that, it's like, well, she can already play so well, so why interfere with that? But there's a couple of things that I feel could just even further improve your amazing playing. Your playing actually reminds me of Hardenberger's playing in the way, something about your quality of note production, but what he does that you're not yet doing is, his is almost like, also with that kind of heavy front to the note, which is fantastic. He also is almost like almost uncontainable, the amount of air that then is behind it. And you shouldn't be as good as you are with the amount of air you haven't got behind your nose. But if you do spend some time, the way it's manifesting is that some notes are, inaccurate occasionally because there's nothing there to back them up. And occasionally they're not, if you want to put them in tune, because you've got a really good ear, and I know that you've probably practiced this without the piano quite a lot. And sometimes it's like, oh, she's just going to leave it there, and even though the piano's there, and it's not, that's an unacceptable thing. It's like, it's tiny in this grand scheme, but, it's like, if you listen back, you'd be like, okay, I do need to get that there. And of course, as soon as you start doing that, it's much more physically tiring to start moving notes around in real time. But you do need to do that. And once you start doing that, you have to back it up with something. You can't just do it here. And the other times, occasionally when the notes split or weren't quite perfect, again, it was the same thing. It was like your ear going, oh yeah, I'm in this part of the chord with the piano, and you're trying to put them in the right place, but you've never put them there before because you've not played it with the piano. So it's about sort of, if you open your ears, sometimes it can make you sound like you've got worse. Do you know what I mean? Because you've actually tuned into someone else, and what you're doing is like, oh no, I'm not putting that in the right place. And it's like if you play with a really bad brass band, which I've done a lot. My beloved hometown band is amazing, but there is no sort of pitch center. So my lip is gone like in 20 seconds because my ears, I'm always trying to listen and trying to find where I should be to be the third in the chord or the first, the tonic or whatever it is, and it's not there. So your lips like, and so you've got to get super comfortable with each trumpet that you own, like where every single note sits and where it might sit with the piano and whether it's at 4/4 or 4/4 with the piano. And it's like this stuff is important at your level. And that is something you've really got to start to think about. The other thing is something that we bring when we're this incredible at the trumpet, but we bring from our more inexperienced years, is this thing that we sort of coined this term yesterday, like the anticipatory note bulge. It's like you do this sort of bulge which is only there in order to get you onto that next note. It's not like people who don't know how to play who might be like, duh, duh, like you find your note and then you play it. So it almost sounds like a backward note, like, rah, and you end it. That stuff, you're not doing that stuff. But you are occasionally da, da, to prepare to do an interval jump. There's a sort of swell of, like a bulge in that note. And it's like, it does make the note sound like it's being played backwards on the tape recorder. You know what I mean? Like that. And essentially, the reason why Håkan sounds so good is because it's like, and why the LSO brass players talk about this all the time, like there's a front on the note, it's like a bell. It's essentially like a percussion instrument, like the piano is. It's all about what you put at the front. And the energy, sometimes you make a conscious decision to put energy in the back end of a note, but it has to be a conscious thing. It's like vibrato. You don't just do it as a sort of default. Sometimes it's like you want that. But generally, you don't want a bulge at the end of a note in order to get you up to another note or down to another note, And that is another thing why the James Stamp is so good, because it is the opposite of music, but it's like, da, there's not da, anything that we do naturally to try and get us to other notes, it eradicates all of that, and that's really important. That's the difference between sounding like a really good player and a really great player, Should we start from the beginning? Just play a bit and I'll see if I can be more specific. So your C's are high always. Do you know that?
Yeah.
What are your internal thoughts about that? Like, I should move my tuning slide, I should probably just play them down a bit, or use a different fingering, or it doesn't matter, or what, like, I'll deal with it next week. What are you thinking?
I think I kind of neglect those ones because at the end of the
Yeah.
move on too fast. If that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That is a massive thing that you do. You're like, it's so impressive, and you get to the end of the phrase and you're like, it's the end, doesn't matter. So you're on your to-do list next week is like, take great care of the ends of every single phrase that you ever play, yeah? Because you are front-loading your attention, if you like. Yeah, whatever. And it's important, you know, that's our lasting impression of you when you stop, you know, it's like, oh, it's really high, yeah? So you need to take control of your trumpet, take command of the thing. Don't let it take command of you, or to take control of you, yeah? Can we just go one more time? Because it's great to hear you play. Should we just go straight on your bar that where you come in? You can lead her. Yeah, it's fantastic. So that was just, all it took was the intention.
Yeah.
You just had the intention, I'm not going to neglect that, I'm not going to play it out of tune. And you knew deep down, in your gut, you knew you were playing out of tune, but you were like, I've got other things to worry about, I'm going to deprioritize that. It's like, no, all you had to do was take care of it, and it's done, you know? So I think there's a lot of things like that, where you can do it all, you can do everything, but you're not being a harsh enough critic on yourself, because you are still at music college, so you are obviously like, I want to get better. So you need to have a hard conversation with yourself about, like, this is good, but could it be better on lots of things? Like, you know, this scale down, because it's really hard to teach someone who's this good, because it's like, yeah, it sounds amazing, but you know yourself deep down what you're neglecting and what you're not. This scale down, it doesn't sound very centered. It doesn't, I mean, obviously musically, da 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 da, you've written heavy, and it should be heavy, but also the notes need to be like grounded. If you want heavy, and it's like literally pitch-wise grounded, and heavy all the way through, but not the kind of, it's like a sort of, it's not even a bulge, it's a sort of like, it's a bit skatey with the sort of airflow. I don't feel like you've got completely control of what you're doing. And again, I think it's just intention. I think even if you just think, I'm going to own this, it will immediately be twice as good. So can you go from, da 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 ba da ba 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 da da, the first one of those, yeah. So if you just go da 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 ba da, yeah. Yeah, so do you hear that C? It was just a bit embarrassing. Don't let it be embarrassing. Make it heavy and dark. Again, I think it's not just a question of pitch. it's like that, da, 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 dee. You are playing sharp, but you're doing that thing where you're playing up here. So if you just do the thing that we were talking about with the previous student, like bring it down here, it will sound so good. And it's just a question of like, it's almost like dropping it in your body, dropping it in your mouthpiece, dropping it in your trumpet, dropping it in your whole body, down, dropping it in your head. Everything's got to go down. Pitch has got to go down. The sound will then get fatter and wider, you know? And then you'll be in a place where it's like, oh, suddenly it's really singing and it's really resonating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is that sense of listening to your gut instinct about it. It's like, is this as good as I can do this? Yeah? So just go from that dolce section and keep it down. Just keep thinking about your, for a start, just purely practically pull it down. Yeah? Yeah, it really is a question of you owning every single note, because your playing is amazing, and you were asking about talking about the opposites, and you are not the person I can use to demonstrate it, because she's doing it amazingly. Like, I've never heard anyone do it so well. Like the jumps, like an octave jump, it's like she's playing the piano, like easy. And it's almost like this is what we want to arrive at from playing the James Stamp for our entire lives, is just being able to go, you know, from a bottom G to a top C without any kind of physical effort. And what the way that we talk, do you do the James Stamp method?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I more do just any lip serve that is the hand.
Oh, yeah.
I do that more than stamp, but
okay.
Same idea.
Yeah, I can't even remember like how he describes it, but something that I think is really important is if you think about going down la, on the trumpet, it can be really like saggy, like inaccurate, like baggy, bloated kind of sound, because you're like letting go of stuff to try and get down low. And the other side of that is like you're trying, you know, you want to go up high, and you get tighter because physically it's more demanding to go up high. And so just purely, again, it's about intention. If in your body, and it is also your body, but if you do this opposite thing, it's like da. It's like you're thinking up, the support comes up as you go down in pitch, and da. You know, you think down in your body and down in the sound. So you're supporting, the more you go high, the more you're like, you visualize like this way rather than like this way. And it does tend to kind of sort out squeaky, squeezed and baggy, you know, at the bottom, because it really then makes everything sound supported. And this is sort of like half the battle with the trumpet, is making the entire range sound equally, easily accessible for you. So you can go there whenever you like. And this is what it sounds like when you can do that. Because your low notes, your high notes are really, really great. And you've got other things that you need to focus on. But the things you want to focus on are really like easily solvable. It's to do with air. And we have got a couple of minutes to carry on. What would be good? Let's do this next section. So do you want to give her a bar into the do? You're not in the same place, are you? Yeah. Okay, so just before the 4/4, like two bars before the 4/4. Yeah. Okay, that's it. Okay, again. Tell me some stuff about this. What's happening in your head?
I think I'm trying to pick it a bit too much.
Yeah.
This concerto.
Yeah.
And then I'm just panicking about the next bit, not really thinking about it.
Yeah, it really, you've given that away to us.
Yeah.
We were talking this morning, weren't we, about the superpower of having ADHD. People who have creative minds, who have ADHD, they have the superpower, which is like they live in the present. And we need all to do that. You need to do that. And this is like, the more scary the bit is in like 6 bars or 6 minutes, the more you have to just get into the present, because imagine that thing goes well, but everything up to then you've ruined it because you were worrying about it, you know? Yeah. So you've got to really train your brain to be in the present. And even if the next bit is a disaster, it doesn't matter, because this bit is the bit you're playing right now and you're not convincing me. Yeah. So then it's like, so commit to this a bit more. Okay. It's not just packed pizzicato, is it? It's dolce, and every note, it's really interesting harmony, so we need to hear those notes, really commit air to each one of those notes. So it's got a beautiful flash. It's a peach with flesh rather than just the skin. Yeah? No. Imagine those water balloons that Maurice Andre plays. Thank you. There was so much great playing there. Thank you for playing today. Great. Yes, and that. Yay! I think I should just be honest and say, I wish I could play the Nat like that. So it's pretty hard for me to give you any advice. Because it's amazing. Like, the Nat does not get better than that. If those of you who don't know about the natural trumpet, that is as good as it gets. You're amazing at the Nat. How long have you been playing?
Since like second year of college.
Okay.
Second year masters.
Okay. And it's obviously when you first picked it up, you were like, oh, I like this. Yeah. And you like the music. What's amazing, what I'll tell you, for those of you who don't know, what's particularly amazing is that she's playing with the piano. And, you know, we were talking the rest of the afternoon about playing in tune with the piano, listening, using your ears, because the piano is not moving pitch-wise, of course. But in this instance, the piano is out of tune, because the piano is tuned to equal temperament, which means all the notes are exactly spaced between each other. So it doesn't really matter what key you're playing in, they're all exactly a semitone. Whereas that isn't how nature works. Nature is the natural trumpet and the harmonic series, and they're all spaced in different places, which is why with Baroque instruments, the key that the piece is written in makes a massive difference to the color and the mood. So the notes on this trumpet that you're playing they are just where they are, and she's having to make huge adjustments for playing with this modern, not clunky the way you're playing it beautifully, but it's clunky when you think about pitch and where things are. Like if you were playing with some strings right now, the strings would know that when she's got her third, they're all going to be playing it super, super low, and you're having to make lots of adjustments as well as making it sound authentic. You're doing this sort of hybrid, modern, authentic thing where you're making the phrasing, the sound of an authentic instrument, but you're, you know, having to adjust, which is why it's really cool that we do have the holes. I know that you've got Madurf coming in later in the year, but I can tell you he wouldn't be able to do that with the modern piano. And it's really, really great playing. We will have to take a break soon because I literally have nothing to say. There's only a few things that you might want to consider, which you probably talked to. Who's your Nat teacher?
Paul Sharp and Richard Thomas.
Okay. They've probably talked about this. You've probably considered it, but sometimes I know that you're kind of using a modern trumpet technique for your tonguing. Yeah. And David Blackadder was trying to teach me this. I think I'm too old to learn new tricks, but you're not. So you should maybe consider this, which is about the da 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 da. I don't know if some of you Nat players can do that, and it's an entirely different thing going on in your mouth where you don't tongue or slur. You don't do either of those things. You do the da 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 thing, and it does mean that the way you produce the notes feels quite different as well, and even the pressure and everything changes. And it's quite a commitment. It's really like you go there and you can't go back, and I feel like that's your next place to go because you're doing modern articulation, which is what, frankly, I do because, I shouldn't. I should do what you're doing. But once you've made the leap, it's like, then you're properly in natural trumpet territory. So then when you pick up your modern trumpet, it's a longer walk over here because everything's different. And the other thing you're doing is and I listen to you and I'm like, that's what I do and that's what I shouldn't be doing. So thank you. Dum bum bum da 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 da. It's not stylish, and it's sort of almost a bit jazzy in the wrong way. Sometimes the baroque and jazz have got this great relationship where when you get a really great jazz musician or a really great baroque musician, they're the same in that they have this kind of. It's like in the groove, the rhythmic, they're in the groove and they have a sort of swagger. And it's things like this where you hear those Baroque players and it's just so sort of funky because it's just in the groove. And it's things like those third beats in a minuet or something. It's like you can't dum dum bum bum da dum da. It's like dum 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 ba da da. It's like it's not necessarily just a question of lift, but it's not a case of you can spoil it by sort of giving it, you know, what you're giving it. But that said, it's really small details, you know. And again, she's really at the point where a trumpet player can't really help her. What she needs to do next is listen to Rachel Podger, for example, and Trevor Pinnock, and people who are like not doing anything related to trumpet style, but it is Baroque style, it's music. It's the style that has evolved of our understanding of the early music you know, that sort of renaissance of like, oh, we think this works and we think that works. You know, Christopher Hogwood and John Eliot Gardner and all those guys who were like, let's just go right back to the beginning. That's where you need to, now that's the world you need to inhabit. I feel like I've got nothing that you can improve, but I really want to just hear you play a bit more. Can you just play the Largo again for us, just like as a treat?
I'm not sure the last note will come out.
Don't worry about that. But I want you to like play this. I mean, I think, you know, it's going to be so easy for you to play in an orchestra because you've got all the technical facilities so coming to you. But now I want you to play this like it is a concerto. You know, so you have to play with great flair and charisma. Yeah, even these moments where you've got to draw everybody to you. Yeah. And one final thing, this is not a great edition. Well, spend some time like.
I've been using the original.
Yeah.
The
you just can't see it.
Like,
great.
What he's written to then write in what I wanted to write.
Okay. Yeah. What's really interesting about Baroque music, I know you can't see this, is that it often, if you look at the manuscripts or copies of the manuscripts, obviously notes are notes and they're written like it's either a semiquaver or it's not a semiquaver. But sometimes literally the way they've used the pen sort of tells you about what that composer thought about certain things, which is why it's sometimes so soul-destroying once it's obviously gone to a Sibelius program. And you're absolutely right to keep it close to you and your heart, what it actually looked like when these composers wrote it out with a pen, because it really does inform how to play it, which is why she's playing it. It's one of the reasons why she's playing it so well. Okay, sorry to interrupt. I'll let you carry on. really great. You're a great piccolo trumpet player, really, really lovely. It's really enjoyable to listen to, wasn't it? It's quite cool for us that we've heard the natural trumpet and then immediately followed by the piccolo trumpet, because they are worlds apart. Even though they play the same repertoire, really, as far as we're concerned. And this trumpet, of course, is chromatic, and the natural trumpet is not, so it's very limited in one way, but another way it's got endless colours because it's so much longer, and this one's so short, and it's very sweet, and it can do lots of things, but it is really on and off, you know. That's the thing about the piccolo, so you've got to find other ways to express yourself. And so it's super important that you play it as the way that you articulate and the length of notes and that sort of thing is really stylish and really kind of, I think, needs to nod towards the, you know, the style, the now style of baroque playing. And something that you do loads, I do loads, and I wonder why we both do it, and I'm wondering where it's come from. If anyone knows, I really want to know where it's come from, where we go, where we just put like long notes at the end of a bar, like sort of like the penultimate note, like dum dum ba dum bum ba dum dum da dum dum da dum da 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 dum bum ba da dum bum. Like, why do we do that? Where does that come from? I do it all the time, and I literally have just made a baroque recording, and every bar I've had to write dot on that note. It's like, it's so ingrained in me to do that. Where did you get it from, do you think, that you do this? Have you listened to lots of recordings?
Yeah, so...
Did I do a recording of it and now that's what everyone does? It's like...
So I think I notice it most that I do it with these ones and I've had to write dots underneath them, but I know I just did it then.
Why did you do it?
Because I'm trying to grow through the phrase.
Yeah.
I'm doing it by the notes getting longer, but not by like intensity. I mean, I've been told a few times now that I do it.
Yeah, and it's, I think the best way to think of this is like, you're playing it, I mean, I know this is for oboe, but just think like a down bow. It's like a stroke, like everything is like coming from the down bow. So this is the beginnings of the bars and the beginnings of phrases, you know, the beginnings of half bars, they're going to be down bows, and everything else is going to be some kind of up bow, which means you're not going to go da-da-dum-dum-ba-da, or maybe you are, I don't know. It's just like, it doesn't sound right. And it sounds fine because we get used to it, we get familiar with what we're doing, and it feels right. Mm-hmm. And then when someone points out the other way, you're like, oh yeah, it isn't stylish. Mm-hmm. And so you do have to go through the piece, like the whole piece, and write in with lots of different colours, because I found that even if I did a dot, it wasn't really big enough. So then, you know, and you really have to be really clever with your phrasing and with your articulation and your length of notes. And another thing, which is a really like crude rule of thumb with baroque music, is that the semiquavers are long and the quavers are short. And if you could apply that to the whole piece, there might be exceptions where that isn't the case. But if you do it that way around, it's going to immediately work a lot better. Mm-hmm. Because the semiquavers tend to be the ornamentation. It's like you dig into, you know, the illustration of something. But the quavers are light and important, but they release. You know, they've got a release to them rather than leaden. You know, and it changes the feel of the piece entirely. And it's so interesting when you listen to recordings, like you've probably listened to recordings of this, and you listen to stuff from, I don't know, like the 70s or the 80s, or orchestras symphony orchestras maybe, that are like, I don't want to listen to the whole new music, you know, baroque music movement, early music movement. We're going to play it the way that Stokowski and everyone's always played it. And it's heavy and it's romantic. And, you know, there's also some big, important Bach recordings, and they have something going for them, but they're heavy. It's like sort of treacle with extra syrup and sponge and syrup and custard. It's like, well, that's quite nice sometimes, but sometimes you need that really deliciously light lemon posset. You know, it's like, this is how different it is. You couldn't really have them both in the same dish. It would be like, oh. And by doing it a bit and not in other places, it is like mixing the syrup with the lemon, you know. And so you have to like listen to those recordings Because it was, sorry, let me go back to my point, which was they're so wildly different. You know, you can listen to a Mahler recording right from the early 20th century right to now, and it's like, yeah, there's similarities there. But when you take a Baroque recording from, before the Renaissance, if you like, in the 80s and after, it is like different music. It's like a different genre, and so it's still quite confusing to know what to do when you've got an instrument like this, which was first heard in Penny Lane. You know, it's not a Baroque instrument. It's very, very modern, but you're trying to play in a stylish way. So it does leave you in a bit of a conundrum. And I just literally recorded on the piccolo with Baroque strings, which is also a bit nuts. You know, it's a bit like what we were doing a second ago with the natural trumpet with the grand piano. It's like, oh, okay. But musically, you can justify it. You just have to make sure you know what you're doing with your note lengths. Yeah. Let's just go from the beginning. Well, just a couple of bars in, and then we can just. Also, can you just tell me what your thoughts are about, like, you know, you've got your introduction, and then you really go for it for real. What are you thinking? Are you thinking declamatory and then take us on a story, or are you thinking introduction and then really commit after that?
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking like the first statement is like, you're there.
Yeah.
And then the second one, obviously it's got like the longer bit anyway. And then that's where like the more like expressive side comes out.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just if that's your thought process, please be in that more, you know, if anything. It's working really well, but just even more, yeah? And, you know, I suggest you could be like, you've done the first 2 bars, and then there's more. It's like, okay, no, come with me, because there's a story I'm telling you, and it isn't just what you thought it was, which you've just heard. It's this other thing. It's really exciting, yeah? It's like you've got to be like, I love this bit, and I love this bit as well, and this is why. Let me tell you why, and this bit's different, and I love this bit too, you know. And if you really feel that, it will come across to us, and we're getting that already. We are getting it, but please just keep doing that. Yeah. Sweet sound. It's like standing next to Maurice Andre. It's beautiful. Let's try this. Dum, da, 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 dum. This was great. I almost feel like she knew what I was going to say because it repeats. And she was like, I'll do it. I know what she's going to say. She won't be able to speak if I do. And I was like, yeah, you did it. Well done. But then da 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 dum dum bum 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 ba da ba da. Give them importance, but not long.
Okay.
So yum bum 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 bum. They're going here, and then da 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 yum bum 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 da da deem, and then da 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 dee da dee dum was lovely. Da 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 ba dum da da dum ba.
Do you think? Can I do that long? No.
Dum da da dum bum bum ba da dum bum ba. You can't do them long.
Okay.
It sounds like this bad, weird combo lemon syrup thing.
Yeah.
Go from B, straight on the tune for real. So the thing I said, you are doing it, but like 10%. I want you to do the thing I've said to the point where you're like, well, I have to then say, okay, I didn't mean that much. Okay? Because you're doing it, and it sounds better, but if you did it more, it would sound even better. Okay? So again, so here, da, 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 da. I think this might be F sharp, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is because it relates to this bit. Anyway, I don't think they should be slurred either. I think they should just be long.
Okay.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Lift that bubble, that Maurice Andre bubble thing I'm talking about. Yeah. So they're important, but they're short. Dum da 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 ba ba da 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 dum ya da 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 lift da da dee, but not slurred. da 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 dee da dee, none of that slur, dum da da dum dum da da dim bum bum, ga da dum da da dum. So the funkiness is coming in the syncopation, in the fact that you're on it with the rhythm, and then these long semiquavers, because you can't do it with the colour. You have to do it with the rhythm and with the phrasing and the length. Okay. It's like when you listen to like the chamber organ or the harpsichord, there's so much they can't do with the instrument, so they have to find another way. And the great players, they just do. And you'll be the same with the piccolo. You just have to find another way to express yourself.
Okay.
Shorter. Those quavers. Just show me. Just play them on your own. Shorter. Yeah, but not from here.
Okay.
But yeah, just do the phrase on your own. Okay, don't slur. Just yum da 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 da. It's heavy but long. If I were you, I would get rid of the slurs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see how that goes, but always long on the semiquavers. You can always put them back in later, but just try, yeah? Okay. And then, yeah, I mean, I think I'm basing my stylistic advice on what I know of what Maurice Andre did, because it's so convincing. He played with so much conviction, and your playing is so good, it's like you just need to do it more. Does that, just more of everything,
Yeah.
more conviction in what you're doing. And what he did was like, it was gorgeous, it was sweet, but it was heavy. It was like, the light notes were light, but they were still bubbles. They weren't like, they were like, and that's what I need. And you're so close to it. One more go. It's really good. But I know it's hard to change the way you play something on stage, but it's definitely worth thinking about, because I know you think you're doing it, but you just need to do it more. Okay. And I would really like you to put in phrasing marks, because sometimes it's like it just sort of meanders a bit. Yeah. And I think it needs to be much clearer to us where the harmony changes, where the line changes to something a bit different. You need to exaggerate it and show us, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good. Let's go to the last movement just for a second, so we can just do something a little different. Oh, here we are. Yeah, you've done it. You've actually put it in. Okay, let's go from A, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, really good. Have you looked at the manuscript of this? I think there's a few things which aren't, who's this? It's this mysterious edition. There's some things here which are not accurate. And also, again, as I say, if you look at the manuscript, it will give you clues of what to do, because it's so hard when you play the piccolo to know how to keep the interest. And like this bit, for example, what are you thinking about? Tell me what your thoughts are. What's BB, by the way?
Big breath.
Okay. And what are you thinking for this bit? Like, apart from just play it, what are you thinking?
Kind of like a wave.
Okay. What, like a downward waves? Or?
Yeah, more like I'm trying to think of like a line, because I tend to think like quite vertically.
Okay. I'm thinking more like in terms of musical progression, rather than like and this again and this again and this again, but on different notes. It's got to feel like there is a journey in some way, whether it's, I don't know, sometimes it's really abstract. Sometimes you can't describe exactly what it is, but I feel like you haven't decided enough how you're going to keep our engagement with it. So you're just playing the notes, and sometimes that's just not enough, you know? So just go from C, and I want you to do, like, so you've got your first phrase, we've arrived at the top, the dominant, and then an answer maybe, we've rounded it off, and then and you think you're going to the end there, but you're not, you're going yum, which is an augmented fourth, which is a surprising thing. So you have to be like, guys, this is going to be surprising, wait for this, you know. You need to keep placing things for us to guide us through, rather than like, wow, she's amazing. Oh, that's just a lot of notes. Wow, there's a few more thousand notes. What time's dinner? You know, it's like, keep us on the journey, even if it's very abstract and we don't know exactly what the picture is that you're painting.
Yeah.
You know? Okay, let's go from C. Keep going. Same, more of the same. Okay, stop there. So this is a prime moment of like, yum da 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 dum da da dum. Isn't this very jolly in a major key? And then yum da 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 dum da da dum. Ya da da ya da da dum. Imagine if you did that on the nat. You couldn't. It's impossible. Yeah. So it's just like, oh, that's really, really interesting harmonically. And just show us that, like this thing, but then this thing, this thing, and you know, keep going. You were doing it before, just keep doing it. You know. And Winton said something to me recently, which was like, whatever it is that you see as your sort of musical personality, always do it. Never go, oh, I feel like I want to say this in this piece for this 20-second moment. It's like, no, do it all the time. So if you decide, like, I want to be an engaging player with a gorgeous sound and I want people to be engaged by my musicality, you have to do that every single note you play for the rest of your life. You can't just do it a bit, because then you just become sort of bland amalgamation of your teachers. You have to be like, what it is, what your personality is, has to come out in your playing through your trumpet, okay? Yeah. So this is like an example of like, I want you to find me really interesting and I'm telling a really great story. So you have to do it all the time, not just a bit, not in the first phrase and not the second phrase. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. E, straight in, big breath. Go, look forward. Great, keep going. Bounce. Now energy. Now Very well done. Very good.